Welcome to the Super Facts Show on the Super Facts Network, featuring St. Laz, who also hosts the popular web series Gem Pop and music journalist Mark Walter Ward. They have discussions about hip-hop, culture, society, philosophy, and everything else. Now available on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts. What up, world? Welcome to the Super Facts Show, Super Facts Network. It's your boy, Mark Walter Ward. Today with us, we got B-Van Randall, owner of Verse Comics, playwright. Got an incredible milestone as a rapper. How you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm doing well, man. I'm alive. How about you?
By that criteria, I'm doing well as well. But yeah, I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good.
There it is.
So, I became aware of you. I did an episode with Yukmouth. Everybody go check that out. And he pulled up his new comic book. And when I saw that, of course I had to get it. And, I reached out and he was gracious enough to agree to be on the episode. So can you just give us a brief background of how it came to be that you made a comic book with Yukmouth and so I got, for those just hearing the audio, I got a new puppy and he was energetic and rough. But how the whole Yukmouth comic came to be, I understand it's gonna be a graphic novel at one point, but you're publishing issues and the first one's out now, Verse Comics.
Oh yeah. So my man LB, when we were getting Verse Comics really off the ground, and we knew we wanted to do projects with influencers, rappers, and sort of like just hyperbolize or turn their sort of their auras and their personas into fantasy. So my boy LB, he introduced me to Yuck. He said, man, that's a great idea. He says, you have anybody that you're gonna approach? And at that time we had a few, tentacles out as far as like different rappers and stuff that we wanted to work with. And then LB introduced us to Yukmouth, and I ran it by him, and he absolutely he was no hesitation. He was right in his first meeting. And what I remember about my first meeting with Yuck, it was telephonically because I'm in Detroit and Yuck being out there in Cali. The brother was like, it felt like I've been knowing him, man. He was cracking jokes and we were laughing on the phone, and he was like, yeah, let's do it, man. He was like, that shit gonna be dope. And so we started just vibing on what direction we would go in, what the storyline would be. And I got to work, and it took a little bit. It took a little while for us to sort of like get the graphics. I mean, not the graphics, the artwork where we needed it. But he loved it. He loved the story, and the rest was history at that point.
Oh yeah, if y'all check out the episode we did with Yukmouth, he was quite enthusiastic about it. But before you linked up and did the comic, how big a fan of his music were you?
Man, how big of a fan? Like I had the biggest hit of all on repeat back in the day. I'm one of the older millennials, man. So I was running around here in the 90s. You know what I mean? The Loonies, Yukmouth. I mean, that's part of my childhood.
So you was copping like the Abulation and United Ghettos of America and all that good stuff?
Yeah, man.
Rap-a-lot stuff?
Yeah, the Rap-a-lot stuff. The man, yeah, we were, I mean, Detroit and Oakland got ties, man. Like that's just how it is, man. But yeah, no, we were
straight pimping, man.
Right. So no, man, I was a big fan of Yuck, big fan of the Loonies. Like I said, man, that whole area, them E40, that's my childhood, man. Like that's what we vibed out to up here,
Hey, so who rocks Illigators, Oakland or Detroit?
Ah, man, come on, that's Detroit, bro.
Because those is like the if there was a Mount Rushmore for Gator rocking cities, Oakland and Detroit definitely going on that
all day, man. Even Biggie had to shout us out on that.
Hey, but I was a little surprised at the direction of the comic. Hey, excuse me 1 second. I got an example that I don't got arm's reach. I'll be right back.
I got you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I forgot I had this Public Enemy comic,
For
and
sure.
and in the Public Enemy comic, it's it's more keeping with their artistic personas. And then I
Mm-hmm.
remember, there's several different iterations of Wu-Tang comic books, and those are more, you know, I don't know if you'd say traditional comic book characters, but it's still kind of reflective of their music personas, and music plays a part. But the Yukmouth comic, he's a 3,000-year-old being. Um, I don't want to spoil too much, so we're gonna give it away. How much can you tell me about like the lore of that world, and why you chose to go with that approach?
Yeah, so as you know, like you just stated, you got the Wu-Tang comic. You even got Marvel did something with Eminem back in the day.
Yeah, that
Um,
that Punisher XXL crossover.
exactly. I wanted to do something different, man. That had been done, and you know, Method Man had a comic. It's no that concept of tying comics to hip hop artists was nothing new. What I wanted to do is I wanted to come in with a differentiating factor, and that differentiating factor was that our comics weren't gonna be based on what they do in real life. We wanted to do something different. We wanted to create a fantasy uh, and just use their persona and their essence to influence a character in a totally different world, almost like an alternate reality. What would these people be in some sort of alternate reality? I just felt I made a decision, and I felt like that would be a little bit more entertaining. Um, and just different, and and when I first did it, it could have been a disaster, but it ended up working for us with Yukmouth, with Haha Davis. In the stories, we use their essence, we use their likeness, but we don't necessarily tie them to what they do and what their career is in the real world, because we just felt like it would just make for a more interesting story. So yeah, man, it was just a command decision to try something different, to give the public something different, and to create a real story that people would be able to dive into, that people could see themselves watching, maybe as an animated series, or maybe as a film one day, or a TV show. We just wanted to create those dramatic stories, but then put the elements of who they are in those stories, as opposed to trying to piggyback off the fact that, oh, he's a rapper, so his superpowers are rap. Man, we just thought that would just be a little, predictable.
Got you. So that's why I don't know how much you can get into it, because obviously you got cliffhangers, and it's gonna be,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
want to sell each successive issue. So how much can you talk about the lore, like this 3,000-year-old being? Like, does Yukmouth have powers? How is he, like, financial at the end? Well, can I say what happens at the end? Just
Of this one?
the very last page.
Yeah, yeah, you can say that.
Okay, so he gets picked up by a driver that's got a very well-stocked bar inside of a just an expensive car. So
Yeah.
so one could assume, I could assume that he's financially well off. So how much of the lore can you tell us?
Oh man, yeah, we can go into the lore. So basically, he's been around for a very, very, very long time. Obviously, his origins start in ancient Kemet, or Egypt, whatever term you want to use. And he's when you've been around that long, and seen what he's seen, you've been able to sort of essentially build a complete empire for yourself. He's very, very wealthy, and very powerful. He is, by definition, a mummy, and has interesting powers in what he can do. We're gonna for this, you'll see a little bit more of that in the second issue, as far as what he can do, and what comes with being a 3,000-year-old mummy. It is a horror comic, so there's going to be some horror elements, as you've seen in the first issue. But as we move into different issues, later issues, the horror is going to be even more pronounced. And yeah, he has a lot of people working around him that are willing to that either by choice or by force, are doing what it is that he needs them to do. But he's very much like a I don't know if you're familiar with Octavia Butler's Wild Seed, but he's
Yes, I love Octavia Butler.
yeah. So he's kind of like a very much like a Doro character in a way, like just
Okay.
this very old, very cerebral figure. You know, but he has his flaws. I mean, even with all of his years of existence and traveling from one corner of the earth to the other.
He still dripped out though.
Oh yeah, always,
He
man.
was rocking some mean fits. I definitely keep that.
Hey, when he began is when all that was starting to pop. You know what I mean? So he always got an appetite for that, and but just a very powerful guy, but also very intense, but also a very I guess you can say empathetic leader. He's not too dark, but there's some darkness in him, and you see that in the first issue, and that's and what happens in his story and why he's that way starts to get more revealed in issue 2.
Now, your company is, you have other titles, and can you tell me how to pronounce it? Is it Therian?
Yeah, Therian's The Awakening. Yeah,
So, is there any chance that this might be a Therian multiverse? Could
man.
Yukmouth ever connect?
You know what? Absolutely. There's nothing against the when you talk about comic books, graphic novels, man, this is a reality that we create. So and it's all coming from so far every title we produce is coming out of my mind. So I'm sure that there's some way in some future issue where, you know, even if it's a one-off where the two worlds are going to collide and meet. Because both of them are actually in that horror comic type of realm, you know, in Therians, we're talking about werewolves and you know,
Oh, it sounds interesting as hell, man. I didn't get a chance to cop that in time, but I'm definitely looking forward to reading all of them.
yeah, bro. Therians is award winning. We got a couple of awards on it as the comic book, but then we also got an award on it as the motion comic that's on YouTube if you wanted to watch that.
I was gonna ask you where to watch that in your
Yeah,
press package. I saw that it was well regarded, won some awards. So I definitely wanted to watch the motion comic. I remember the Game of Thrones ones that came with the DVDs, and I enjoy motion comics and the Watchmen ones if they're done well.
yeah. We did our best for what we had at the time, and
Oh,
I was a little self-conscious about it, but people they gave it awards. So I was like, okay, it works. Let's do it.
I already know it's done well. You got beautiful. Man, here I'm obscuring your product, man. I'm sorry, Flavor Flav, Lil Wayne, T-Boz, Steve Aoki, and Run DMC. Y'all gotta go this episode. But yeah, the product is beautiful. This
Thank
is
you,
like
man.
sometimes people, I mean you're an independent comic book company. That's safe to say, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
They have less let's say high grade products, but this is absolutely A++. Great paper, great
Thank you.
stock, beautiful
Thank
art.
you. Thank you, man.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading all of them, and crossovers and all that. Comic book fans is always into that.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
But that when reading your press package, well, can I get serious, or do you want
Yeah, 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 yeah.
the rap? Okay, we'll do this. I got one serious question for you.
Go ahead.
You mentioned about how your dad had mental illness issues, and
Yeah,
I myself have mental illness issues,
yeah.
and I wonder if you have any advice on how does a child of a father who has mental health issues, how can they deal with that, or mitigate this, coping tools. I'm not no psychologist. I don't know all the good jargon, but
I hear you.
how to deal with it better.
You know, honestly, Mark, if I knew, uh, I I wish I would have known. For me, I think it was just about staying focused on my goals in life. You know, not really allowing it to define me, not allowing what I was dealing with and what I was suffering from at home. I mean, because it was there were some very trying times, man. very interesting, very trying times.
Yeah, I
And
can be trying for my family. I mean, who
yeah,
knows what the overlap of. There's no need to get into the the specifics of either
absolutely,
of our situations, but the broad
absolutely.
strokes, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
it can be a burden on those around you, most
that's
definitely.
right. That's right. And I think what I did, man, is I learned to like just not hate my father, and to understand that what he was going through was not his fault. Um, Having the empathy to understand that when our brains don't perform or function how we need them to, it's not really much we can do about it, right? So finding that middle ground, because I'm gonna tell you, man, for years I really resented my dad. I really uh they say hate is a strong word, but there's times where I really felt like I hated him. But especially after losing my mom when she was such a young age, he didn't have anything to do with that, but still, just kind of losing the woman that I loved and cared about the most to deal with the man that I felt.
Your protector.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My mom was my protector, and then to be left with the guy that I felt, all my life, kind of made my childhood very tumultuous. I had a lot of resentment, but being able to understand that it wasn't his fault, to be able to understand that mental illness is something that can attack any of us. None of us are too have a 100% defense against it.
It's
I
just like
mean,
catching cancer. You know,
man, just like catching
it's
cancer.
a
I mean,
disease.
think about it. Like even with COVID, man, like I didn't realize how, even for me, how being trapped in the house 24/7 for a year would start affecting me.
Yeah, I mean,
So
and that's where mine comes from. You know, being incarcerated, solitary confinement. You know,
yeah, man,
nothing new, the typical story, but mad of us got problems because of that. That's for sure.
absolutely,
Like
absolutely.
I suggest anybody watch the Khalif Browder documentary on Netflix and realize this: the solitary confinement will give anyone who's subject. If you don't get a mental problem from it, man, that's amazing. God bless you, but the majority of people do, and that's happening to people every single day all over this country.
Inhumane treatment, right? Inhumane treatment.
Solitary is definitely inhumane. We ain't gonna get into mass incarceration or
Oh,
people
bro,
being
yeah,
locked,
yeah,
but solitary confinement is absolutely inhumane because I've seen it.
absolutely.
If it drives people to wipe their shit on the windows and the walls, obviously that's not good.
One of the biggest problems with incarceration, man, is that when you look at the numbers, statistically speaking, they estimate that somewhere around maybe I think it's like 3 to 5% of all prisoners that are locked up are innocent. So having that solid number, right? Having that 3 to 5% that we can pretty much say we know 3 to 5% are innocent. We should be doing a lot more to not make incarceration such the nightmare that it is.
Then not to interrupt you, brother. Not just the innocent people. Let's not forget the sick people, because many
That's
people
right.
are in there because of addiction. You know,
Mm-hmm.
theft crimes related to addiction, and many people are in there for untreated mental health.
Absolutely.
If you
Come on,
take
man.
away the mentally ill, the addicted, and the innocent, you know, you're clear. And then let's not even get into the nonviolent marijuana offenders, and
Yeah.
you're clearing out a huge percentage of the prison population.
Bro, listen, man. I grew up on the east side of Detroit, right? If you're from Detroit, the east side is probably one of the worst places in the city to grow up. But my I got people that I know, man, that I grew up with that are serving life sentences in prison. I got others that are in the ground, man. But what I do know is that growing up as a youth, we were not criminals, man. Like we were just poor. We weren't criminals, and we weren't killers. And the ones that were, we knew who that was. Everybody in
Yeah.
the hood knew who that dude was, and everybody in the hood knew that dude was not somebody that you wanted to really mess with like that,
Yeah.
because he was half a bubble off. So this idea and this notion that you go through the hood ready for battle because all of these ghetto people want to kill you or fight you is it's bullshit, and it has to change. And I going back to the 3 to 5% of people being innocent. If it's 1%, if we know that we got 1% in there that's innocent, shouldn't we be doing more to protect. I get people don't have much empathy for people who without a doubt committed a crime. But if we know we have a percentage that is innocent, that percentage, right, should be what we should be basing the prison experience off of, because they're in there unjustly. So base the prison system off those innocent ones that are just getting the short end of the stick due to police corruption or due to somebody just trying to get their man, and build the system off of that. And then maybe you might actually be able to get the rehabilitation that you're shooting for. But we know it's not really about rehabilitation. That's for another conversation, though.
Well, I mean, I can sum it up like this. The reason that don't work right now is that you can't get elected off that.
Exactly.
Now, let's get deep real quick.
Yeah.
Since or profound or whatever, or maybe I'm overrating my question.
No, you good.
Well, I mean, you gotta hear the question first.
Yeah.
You writing this horror stuff, and you obviously have dark moments in your life, and sometimes horror comic books specifically have been criticized. But do you think that people understand that how therapeutic it is, or do you find it therapeutic to write horror comics, and is it somehow a release of darker sides? I mean, everyone's got dark sides to their personality, or maybe even dark thoughts you dwell on. Like that could be like a subconscious expungement of negative thoughts.
Could be. Every type of story or every genre of story is really just trying to tell us something about ourselves, right? So if and like this, as they say, every story is a love story at the end of the day. Doesn't matter if it's horror, doesn't matter if it's comedy. At the end of the day, there's a love story in there, intertwined in there. My brain, the way my brain tends to function, I tend to write fantasy, I tend to write horror. But I do comedy. So I did the Ha Ha Davis book was comedic. There was no darkness, there was no horror in it. But I do have a love for horror. I don't know, to be 100% honest, if my love for horrific things stems from a childhood, from a childhood darkness, and sort of maybe me facing my fears through writing about it. Because there were a lot of moments in my childhood where I was very afraid, given my upbringing and how life was for me. I was afraid and I felt alone in a lot of times. And I felt like I needed to be brave to take care of my sick mother because my father was incapable. So did a lot of that stimulate my thoughts in a more darker realm, possibly. I don't buy too much into it. I just love to be entertained. I think naturally as humans, we love to be scared. We enjoy it. We have entire theme parks that are dedicated to taking us to the brink of death, or the perception of the brink of death, but just bringing us back. That's what roller coasters are. You get the thrill that you're getting ready to like crash to your death, but you're not really. It's safe, and that's why horror has been such a beloved genre in general in filmmaking, because it kind of gives us that rush, that fear that you might perish, take you there, but pull you right back to safety. So, yeah, man, could it be something deeply rooted there, that I'm utilizing the art form and the medium to express? Possibly. Or it could just be just like every other human. We just love that rush, man, that 100 miles per hour down the freeway, that roller coaster, that bungee jump, that, scare me, give me an adrenaline rush, make me feel alive for a split second, because that's when we feel the most alive, was when we're scared. The heartbeat picks up, the adrenaline dump, that fight or flight sets in. That's when you feel most alive. One thing my father used to tell me back in the day, whenever I got into any conflict with a bully or some kid that I had to fight, was don't think that feeling that you have is fear. The butterflies in the stomach, the flush feeling in your face when you're getting ready to get into this fight, you're getting ready to have to whoop somebody's ass, right? Or they whoop your ass. It's this flush feeling. He says that's not fear. He says that's the body telling you that the shit is about to go down. Now, later on, I learned that that's called fight or flight. you know, it's not fear, but that rush, he says, embrace that, right? Embrace that. Because and when you stop feeling that feeling, then you're dead. Simple.
Word. So then I guess in regards to the strength of the question, I was more the pretentious professor. In this case, a cigar was just a cigar. All right. So in the book, it says created and written by B Van, and then illustrated by Jarrell Threat. So when you create and you write this out, how difficult is the process, or even what does the process look like of the illustrator getting the vision properly manifested into something tangible?
Yeah, man. Actually, his last name is Treat. I know. I used to say Threat for months. It's pronounced Treat.
Excuse me, Jarrell.
Yeah,
Treat.
yeah,
Well, whatever. Either pronunciation, your shit is dope, or rose by any other name, it's still just as dope an illustration.
He's super dope, man. So yeah. So the process with Jarrell is, or any artist, dope artist that I work with, man, is I'll come up with an idea. I'll usually bring them in on the idea. We'll talk about in generality, like a synopsis of where I want to go with the story. Then that way the artist will then start to draft some concept images, what the characters may look like, what the world is going to look like. Once we have that sort of helps. I'll commence to writing a script of the story. And then once the script is done, I hand it off to them. You know, I take my first draft, hand it off to them. From that script, the artist will then start to sketch the concepts, the panels, what the layout will look like. It's a lot of back and forth. He sends me the sketches. I compare the sketches to the script. The sketches are not defined, but they're good enough for me to sort of see the layout of how the characters will be in the scene. He gives me just enough to be able to see if that's how things should look on paper. Once we come up with a finalized, okay, we love these sketches coincide with the script, then we move into finalizing it with more detailed penciling. Then from there, we go into inking. And then finally, we'll go into coloring it and getting it ready for actual publication.
The Superfacts Network, home of Gen Pop, SDE, and the Superfacts Show, now available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts from. Come check out St. Laz, G from the Shop, and Mark Walter Ward.
So, another thing going through your EPK, I noticed that you have had a rap career, and I checked out the two Parenthood songs that's on SoundCloud. Unfortunately, I got Spotify, not Apple, so I couldn't hear the whole thing. But I like that whole concept. Can you tell me about the Parenthood project you released?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. So I did hip hop for years, man. Coming up out of high school, I just had a love for it, not just being a fan of it, but a student of it, and studying and trying to work towards a career in it. And things were good. I learned a lot. Came close a lot of times to some very notable people in the industry. And then put out a couple of projects that I was pretty proud about back in the day. And so I ended up sort of pulling back from hip hop and getting more into my creative side of like playwriting and screenwriting. But I ended up having a family, and my kids became fans of some of the music that I was doing back in the day. So I had these little kids in the back seat who, my babies who are listening to my music. And now as a dad, I'm like, oh, they can't be listening to this. So I can't, we can't do this because I have my son. Hey, dad, play this. Hey, dad, play this song. Play the song of yours. And this, so I'm like, all right, so let me do something. Let me create an album maybe that I will feel more comfortable with them listening to, with them being so little. And then also being a dad, man, you start to really feel your mortality, man. Like you really start to I find myself worrying all the time about like leaving my kids, prematurely.
I know about
it. And I'm not even a type of dude who lives life on the edge like that, but just the reality of like every moment is like borrowed time, man. Like you don't know if a drunk driver gonna, crash into you, or not to be morbid.
Brain aneurysm,
And you
anything.
know what I'm saying? Like
I
not
mean,
to be morbid.
it's factual. It's not more.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah, it's
morbid.
a reality. It happens to us all. So when I sat down to do the album, I was like, all right, I want to do something that is fun, that they can listen to, but that they'll have a piece of me, so that if something was to ever happen to me, they could go back and listen to that album and they can feel like I'm talking to them through the music. So I put these tracks together really just as me just talking to my kids, man. So like, they could go on and not just be entertained, but feel like that they were getting some sort of message from their dad, if that reality was to ever hit. And then, it ended up being like they loved it. They loved it. My nieces loved it. And it's like, so this running joke, I'm like a celebrity in my family amongst all my nieces and nephews, because they young, they little.
Them two Jones on SoundCloud slap. I let my 8-year-old daughter listen to them. She was definitely grooving. We're gonna have to get our hands on the full project.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was fun, man. I had a lot of fun recording it, man. It was just a fun, clean, family-friendly project that my kids could vibe out to. I didn't have to feel guilty about them listening to it because it didn't have any profanity in it. Nothing about, the hoes or none of that. So it was just fun. We just had fun doing it, man. I'm just glad that I did it, and it's forever there. Maybe my grandkids will listen to it one day.
All right, and then I want to get out of there with this. The most mind-blowing thing in this, man. Your electronic press kit is like, it's like a little mini novel. Like that shit was one of the most interesting ones I ever read.
Thank you, man.
So you were the first artist to perform for the troops at Guantanamo Bay.
First hip hop artist. Yeah.
How did that come about?
Oh wow, yeah.
And then what was it like? Like getting there, being there, all that.
Oh wow. So all right, so story time. So I was in the Army. I joined the Army back in 1999. And then, I was still doing this hip hop thing. And I ended up September 11th ended up happening back in 01. A year later, I get the call that I was being mobilized. And I'm in the dead smack in the middle of like promoting myself, hip hop, rapping. My good friend Lazarus, he's the medical doctor, the hip hop artist and medical doctor out of Vegas. He's from Detroit, so me and him met on the college campus. Like I'm in the prime of like trying to make something happen with this whole hip hop thing, and making connections with people like him in the meantime. And so we get mobilized. They say, "Hey, Randall, we going." We got the call. So we get mobilized right dead smack in the middle of Operation Iraqi Freedom. I end up in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And I felt like for a minute there, like I had to put my hip hop career on hold because, I had to go do this tour for a year with the Army. And so I'm down there, and, one of my battle buddies, that's what we call him, one of my battle buddies suggests, like, because they were all fans of my music. They were like, bro, you should put on a concert here. And at first I'm like, I'm discouraged. I'm down. I'm like, man, no, I ain't trying to do all that. And, and then finally, I could be a little bit bullheaded, but then the idea sort of started festering, and I'm like, okay, no, this could work. So I reached out to the, what's called the MWR, the Morale and Welfare Recreation Program on Guantanamo Bay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a hip hop artist.
That sounds like an oxymoron, like a motherfucker.
You know what I'm saying? Like, no, yeah, they tried. Let's just say they tried. So
I mean, they throw a rap concert, so shout out to them for that.
There it is. There it is.
If nothing else.
There it is. So I reached out to them. They were like asking me a bunch of questions or whatever, and they were like, all right. They started softening up to the idea. So my whole crew at the time, shout out to Quentin Denard, Brandon Fletcher, my boy Terrence, the whole crew. They came out. We flew them all out, and they had to get security clearances and everything. It was crazy. So they fly into Guantanamo Bay. We do this big concert down there. The troops love it. We started getting write-ups in like Source magazine, all kinds of stuff, man. And there was some talk about, you know, us going around performing at all the military bases, but that didn't never happen. We that for some reason that never manifested. But at the end of the day, man, it was a great experience. To this day, man, when I get around my boys, Quentin and them, they like, man, it's crazy to know that we, you know, performed in Gitmo in Cuba. How many people could say they did that, you know? So it was a hell of an experience, man, and we had a blast doing it. So that's how that all came about.
And that's wild, man. Well, thank you for joining us today. Before we get out of here, hey, please stay on after I stop recording too. But
For sure.
please, can you shout out your Instagram and the website where they can get your comics?
For sure. So the IG is B Van Randall, at B Van Randall, B Bravo V Victor, AN Randall. And then also the Twitter is the ghetto_nerd. And then the website is www.verse, VERSE, comics with an S, USA.com. That's www.versecomics.usa.com.
I'll be in the show notes of the audio pod of this. Thank you for your time, brother. Have a good day.
So, thank you for having me, Mark.
Out.
The Superfacts Network, home of Jump Pop, SDE, and the Superfacts Show, now available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts from. Come check out St. Laz, G from the Shop, and Mark Waldo Ward.